Welcome to Search for Signs. My name is Gary Willing. If this information interests you, please press the like and subscribe button and press the bell for notifications. In a lot of these videos, I talk about the reception of Maitreya when he's out known openly for who he is. Now, a slight recap for those who have never heard these videos before. Maitreya has been giving interviews around the world for going on 9 years now, but not claiming to be Maitreya. But that's not going to last forever. Very soon, he is going to step in front of the mic and all the cameras and declare himself before the world, thus fulfilling the prophecy, all eyes will see him. And I did a video about the Day of Declaration if you want to hear about it. It's in one of the playlists that I have. But today I want to talk more about the reception of Jesus, because Jesus is going to be one of the masters that's introduced not long after Maitreya has claimed him, has declared himself before the world as Maitreya. And, Jesus' job as a master is going to be to help clean up a lot of the distortions and the misunderstandings that the churches have been preaching and the people have been believing for centuries. And that's his job. Now, as far as I'm concerned, it's probably one of the more difficult jobs that a master could undertake, because the nuts of the fundamentalist are pretty hard. But he's got a big hammer, and he can crack that nut. It's just, it's going to take some time, I'm sure. Jesus is a very loving guy, but yet he carries a big stick. Now, physically, he might not look like the pictures that you have seen of him. He might, I don't know. He might have a beard. He might not. He might have long hair. He might not. I don't know. It just depends on what he wants to do. But I'm sure he's not going to be walking around, New York or London wearing sandals and a long, robe from 2,000 years ago. I think he'll be wearing modern clothes and dress in the situation that he's in, just like Maitreya will dress for the situation that he's in. If they're out talking, in the beach, they probably won't be wearing suits. But if they're in a business meeting or in a meeting, or on TV in a studio or something like this, yes, they'll be dressed to the nines. If they're talking in the Middle East, they'll be dressed more like Arabs, or whatever. I don't know. It's however they want to dress for whatever situation they're in. They can create clothes. They don't have to buy it. Jesus doesn't have a black card. He can just think of the way he wants to look, and whoop, that's the way it is. Right. Same thing with all the other masters. But I digress. But, the reception of Jesus is going to be a lot like the reception of Maitreya, I think, in a lot of ways, where there will be people who will probably be very open to him being Jesus, because they don't have such a black and white view of what Jesus is. Others might find it very, very difficult to accept his ways of speaking and thinking and his suggestions, based on the fact that he's not going to be talking the way that they're expecting him to talk. They might deny it. They might call him a demon or whatever like this, but that's just because these people don't know who they're talking about. And the picture that they've had in their mind for their whole life, he's not coming in that way. Jesus is not going to come back on a cloud with a host of angels and blowing trumpets and, and swoop in and judge all of us. He's not coming that way. In fact, Jesus has been around for centuries, living in Syria. But since the mid-70s, he moved from Syria to Rome, and has been living in Rome ever since, waiting for the day that Maitreya comes out and declares himself before the world. And like I said, not long after he does that, the Master Jesus is going to be introduced. I'm sure he'll probably, if he's not the first master to be introduced by Maitreya, I'm sure he's going to be the second. But I would be shocked if he's not the first, But he will then, if the church especially the Catholic Church allows him, he will be the next pope, or not the next pope, but Pope Francis will be the last pope. And Jesus will then take over the churches from there. But it's not in the same way that the Christian churches have believed all this time. He's going to be coming and purifying a lot of the teachings that they've been talking about. But most importantly, the biggest shock for most hardcore fundamentalist Christians is he is going to tell you that he never once said that he was the only true Son of God. He's never gonna claim it, and he'll say that he never did say it. That you are just as much of a son of God as he is. And if you know anything about early Christian writers, the writer Origen, for instance, right? I bet you've never heard of him. It'd be very rare if you've heard of who Origen is, because sadly, his writings are very inspired, but sadly, his writings were all taken out of the Bible. And they did it specifically because he did not suit their needs. His writings did not suit the needs of the leaders of the Christian churches at the time. Talked about reincarnation, talked about the fact that Jesus was not the only true Son of God, talked about how we're all divine, talked about the need for fasting, talked about the need for being a vegetarian and so forth. All of it was taken out and left on the cutting board. And it's sad because Origen, his writings are amazing in a very Christian style, but speaking in the same way that Maitreya is speaking today. He spoke about 2,000 years ago, not long after Jesus passed. And yet, he's forgotten about, right? It's a tragedy in a way. And according to the masters, it was done specifically by the forces of darkness. There are masters of darkness just like there's masters of light. You know, like Maitreya says, every energy has its opposites. They just have to be the opposite of what the masters that I'm speaking out are about. And they purposely took it out to keep people in fear and keep the guilt going, because they knew that would keep them in power. And so when the Christian churches preach about Jesus being the only true Son of God, they're really speaking in evil in a way. And I don't use that term very often, but in this case I will, because it really is true. So when they see Maitreya or they see Jesus, they're not going to accept him right away. Some maybe not at all for this lifetime, but nothing will happen to them. I mean, they'll be fine. But Jesus is going to be speaking more in line with what he was saying 2,000 years ago. And it's going to be a shock for most hardcore Christians, because of the fact that that's not what they've been fed their whole life. They've been fed something other than what Jesus was talking about. But, and as always, take action. Help SOP save our planet. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to talking to you again in future videos. Have a great day.